everybody, and welcome back to Coffin Talk Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. Today's guest is Angie Hawkins. I believe she currently lives in Hawaii, although I forgot to ask if she was still there, but she's a surfer. She moved to Hawaii from Chicago, and she's awesome. And I want to say she's my new best friend, but that might be overstepping the boundaries of a podcasting relationship and friendship that you start with someone. But she's seriously so damn cool, and you're going to really appreciate her. And her story is incredible, and she gets into some really, really vulnerable stuff that I think is going to help people. But what I actually think is going to help you the most is her talking about what happened after the vulnerable things that she's going to relate, and how much she has helped herself and how much she can help others. And I don't know, it's a pretty incredible world where you can meet someone through like podcasting circuits, and then you just get such a good vibe and a good feel from them. And Angie's definitely one of those people. She's really warm, and she has like a genuine desire that you can like see through her. Like, so like meaning you like get an impression of who she is that is beyond words and beyond, it transcends everything that she's saying and doing. And I think you'll agree with me by the time you get through the interview. And yes, this does translate in the audio format of the podcast, so don't worry if you're not one of those people who likes to watch them. But what I want to say the most about Angie is that she really seems to care about finding effective solutions to what plagues us all, which is a lack of self-esteem, a negative inner talking voice, and just fear of like having no hope and living a lonely life. And I mean, like, even if you're in a relationship, just that feeling that can plague us all. And so I think her story is captivating and compelling. I think I should learn how to speak clearer and slow down when I do intros to podcasts. And I think that's my negative voice. I think that's what she was talking about. That second comment wasn't good. So I'm going to work on my perfectionism. And yeah, this was an incredible episode, and I think you'll be very glad that you listened to it. And thank you again, Angie, and thank you to everyone at home. And we'll cue over to the real interview right now. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Coffin Talk Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. This week, our guest is Angie Hawkins. She's an inner glow coach who transforms high-achieving women to stop dimming their light to be loved and learn to love themselves so deeply that the world can't help but reflect it back. She's the author of Running in Slippers, a raw and vulnerable memoir about finding resilience after emotional rock bottom, something we're going to talk about today, obviously. And Angie has moved from Chicago to Hawaii on her own, jumped out of a helicopter and into the ocean, Navy SEAL style, another thing we're definitely going to talk about. She has bungee jumped, something I'm afraid to talk about, skydived, and she's cliff jumped, yet she's still terrified about allowing herself to be seen. So thank you, first and foremost, for coming on a podcast where you're going to be seen. And it's an incredible bio. I always ask guests, how old are you? Were you raised, and what generation did you become? Do you consider yourself a member of? So I'll start there, but then I'm going to jump into these other questions.
That's a good question. Well, actually, there were several. So I'm 45. Yeah. I was raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I consider myself Gen X. I'm on the cusp of Gen X and millennial, though.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm 44, and like, okay, gun to the head, it's not even hard at all. Just Gen X all the way. Like all the music. Yes. I think something I've discovered recently, we're the last generation to even use or understand the concept of selling out. It's just like,
oh, really?
Yeah, it's a foreign, like millennials are like, that's the point of life, like to sell yourself and like what, yeah. So it's like, yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely Gen X then.
And I've noticed it when I interview like Gen X people, they aren't as like, and I'm not saying this to denigrate millennials, it's the opposite. But it's harder for us to self-promote. It's harder for us to like speak about what we do.
Myself to be seen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I once saw a video of a very early Nirvana tape where they're playing in a Radio Shack. And I used to play in a band, and we used to do like horrible gigs like that because you're just desperate. And I could tell like David Grohl, the three members of the band, they're like really sad, and they're like having trouble like getting, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, it's just the plight of, I think, Gen X. So that's cool. Enough about my silly thoughts on Gen X. So let's actually just start in with this obsession that I'm pretending you have over jumping, like jumping out of a helicopter, bungee jumping, skydiving, and cliff jumping. Did that start at one abrupt point?
Kind of, but not for the reason you might be thinking, because people see that, or even my pinned post on Instagram are me jumping out of a helicopter or me bungee jumping. And so people just assume I'm an adventurous person, which is not true. The reason I do those things is because I used to live my life in fear. I was afraid of trying new things. I was afraid of getting out of my comfort zone. And basically, I was afraid of anything but playing small. And I always thought when I saw other people doing these things, I always thought they were fearless. And I'm like, well, that's not me because I'm afraid of everything. But at one point, and this wasn't until my late 30s, I learned this concept of feeling the fear and doing it anyway, because I learned that a lot of people who do crazy things, and not even just adventurous things, but like starting their own business and things like that, they actually are afraid. The only difference is they don't let the fear hold them back. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like start doing new things to get out of my comfort zone. And the first thing I did was I planned a trip to New Zealand and Australia by myself, which that in itself was terrifying. But then, so I'm going to New Zealand. I didn't really know anything about it. And I'm researching things to do. Apparently, bungee jumping was invented in New Zealand. So if you go to New Zealand, bungee jumping is the thing to do. So I was like, well, if I'm going to New Zealand, I'm going to bungee jump. So I was like, click, signed up. And that was the first major thing I did to get me out of my comfort zone. And it was absolutely terrifying. However, the sense of pride that I felt for myself afterwards, because I was scared and I did it anyway, it was like, yes, I did it. And even though I've done adventurous things after that, like jumping out of a helicopter into the ocean, I always go back to bungee jumping because whenever I feel afraid to do something, I remember how scared I was, but I also remember that sense of pride afterwards that I did it. So that's one thing that motivates me to keep me going. And that's why I do adventurous things, not because I like it or because it's pleasant, but because basically to prove myself that I can do it despite that I'm afraid.
That's really cool. I took so many good things from that, and I think it's interesting because you use the word pride, and it's the appropriate use of the word, but there's such a negative connotation with that word as far as like seven deadly sins. But like pride in yourself after doing something like that, I feel like we should have a better word for it just because of the connotation. Like that's the best thing ever. I mean,
No, I agree. And I was also raised to not brag about things because my mom like didn't want other people to feel bad about themselves or whatever. So I do think pride for various reasons does have a negative connotation, but there is like nothing wrong with being proud of yourself for accomplishing something. And I think we should celebrate ourselves more.
Yeah, totally. And then this is a strange question. I've never asked anyone this, but it seems worth asking.
I feel honored.
What is your comfort zone? Like, what does that look like?
I don't even know if I have one anymore because it's like anytime I'm afraid to do something, it's like I'm kind of at the point where there's no excuses because it's like I just need to do it. And I know I just need to take action and do it. So I don't even know if I have a limit anymore.
Were you, prior to your mid-30s when you started like most of these things, were you like a homebody? Were you like what was your comfort back then?
Yeah, like I was definitely a homebody. I like didn't really travel much. Yeah, I had a routine. I just didn't get out of my comfort zone at all.
Yeah. I'm just curious because I think like that's something they say you live two lives. You live the one you live until you figure out you're going to die, and then you start living.
Yeah.
And I feel like we all have, no, I shouldn't say we all have that. I feel like the people I'm lucky enough to interview have that moment, that like the types of people who are coming on podcasts, trying to put themselves out there, trying to help other people, like most notably of all, we needed help. Like we were those people, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm like, because I wish there was someone like me for old me.
Yeah, totally. And was there someone, like, did a person ever influence you deeply?
Well, not really. It was just like the events of life, because one was the death of my father, because he was only 63. And that was my reminder that life is too short to not do what you want to do. And related to my comfort zone, I was living in Chicago. I lived there for a long time. I had always wanted to move to Hawaii. but it was just something in my mind that I thought about, like, because I like lived in this state of fear. It was like, oh, that's not even possible because XYZ. I had all these limiting beliefs. And my dad passed away, and it just kind of opened a floodgate to like emotions and just ideas and things I had never thought of before. But again, he was only 63. And I was like, at any given time, tomorrow could be your last day. Today could be your last day. And I just started thinking about, what if I lived a life where I didn't have any regrets? Because someday may never come.
Mm.
And so the first true thing I did, in my opinion, to get out of my comfort zone was, it was about a year and a half after my dad died. I moved from Chicago to Hawaii, and which was so terrifying. But again, and actually, I didn't go to Australia and New Zealand until I moved to Hawaii, but just that one act opened up the floodgates for so much else, because I had the courage to even go on that trip. I had the courage to schedule the bungee jumping excursion. It just opened up so much for me that never seemed available to me before then.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And that's for a million reasons, that's like very daring. Yeah. And like, I guess, cause we always ask our guests, there's no better time to ask. So, do you have a fear of death? What do you think is going to happen when you die? How do you approach that?
So I don't, because I had a near-death experience myself. And I think I used to be afraid of dying, especially my dad died alone. And it made me start thinking, like, I don't want to die alone. And I actually went skydiving about 6 months after my own near-death experience. And I wasn't afraid because I just had this, I guess you could call it an acceptance, because I was just like, if this is how I die, this is how I die. And it's so weird because I'm not afraid of death anymore. Or I surf, and a lot of people ask me, like, are you afraid of sharks or whatever? And I'm just like, and I've seen sharks surfing, and it is kind of scary, but it's, again, if I die by getting attacked by a shark, then that's how I die. It's just like this calm acceptance of it, and I'm not afraid of it, which is kind of weird because I think it makes me even more willing to get out of my comfort zone, which is probably another reason why I don't feel like I have limits anymore, because it's like, I just want to live my life. And if that's how I die, that's how I die.
And then do you think anything is going to happen to you when you die? Do you think your consciousness will continue? Things like that?
Yes, because that's another thing my dad taught me, because my dad and I were not close when he was living, which for a period after he died, that brought me a lot of guilt, because it was kind of like, oh, I should have did this, I should have did that. But then I established this relationship with him on the other side. And my dad, when he was alive, he was an alcoholic. In hindsight, I think he was depressed. So, on earth, you have all these ego issues, yeah. But on the other side, it's just your pure soul. And so now I have this relationship with him as he is, and he's like my best friend, because he's like always protecting me. He's always showing me signs, and it's just like such a beautiful thing, which is another thing I've learned, because a lot of people see death as the end, and there's all this grief, which is okay because it's the end of that relationship, but it's not the end of a different relationship. And so the beauty that came out of my dad's death was like seeing this other side. And I do think there's this consciousness where your soul just exists as it is, without all these like ego ailments that we have on this side.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. And I am on that side. But with that said, I always press back with any guest because I have a wide audience. Yeah. How do you approach skeptics and people who laugh at things like that and just say, like, you're just a baby, your dad died, and you just want to make it up? Like, and again, I'm on your side, but like, does that come up? Do you ever have to deal with it?
Not really. But here's the thing I've been noticing, because I feel like it used to be, this is science and this is woo-woo, and like the things they never like intermixed, right? But I'm noticing it starting to intermix more, because science talks about energy and woo-woo talks about energy, and that's really all it is. We're just using different languages. So for anyone who pushes back, I would just use scientific language instead of woo-woo language.
Totally. I completely agree. I also think it's laughable that science is a like exercise. Science is just a discipline and approach. And so like to say that science suddenly trumped everything else and like, just centuries of thought and philosophy and experiential observation, it's like laughable to me. So
Yeah.
also speaking of generation differences, that's one of the more comforting things I've noticed from meeting a lot of Gen Z people. And again, I use these terms roughly, but just younger people in
Yeah.
general. They're tired of the like only science materialism, like,
Oh,
just,
okay.
yeah. So I think we're entering a new era in America specifically where we're
I
going
do
to
too.
stop saying woo woo and science as much, which is what you said. So
And maybe it's from Gen Z. I didn't realize that was the, yeah.
no idea. Cause like
Uh,
I'm just 40 something, like actually enjoying my life for the first time ever, like I'm finally like, realizing, oh, there was no one to impress this whole time. I thought there was like, yeah.
yeah.
And if you don't mind me get into it, what was your near death experience?
So mine, unfortunately, was self-imposed. I just hit a breaking point in my mental health. And a lot of that came from in my upbringing. Basically, the root of it was both of my parents were emotionally unavailable. So and from a very early age, I developed this belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. So, for all of my life, through 40 years, I was a perfectionist. I was a people pleaser because I was dependent on all these things outside of me to be the source of my self worth. So I had chronic anxiety, I was depressed, all of these things. And then one of the turning points was my dad passing away because that was the most profound grief I've ever felt in my entire life. And then another part of it was self-imposed because I moved to Hawaii from Chicago, and that was pretty stressful on its own. So that brought its own challenges. So there was like a 2-year period where it was just like thing after thing after thing without any break. And then COVID happened. So I don't think I have to describe how that
No.
exacerbated the situation. And the straw that broke the camel's back was the end of a relationship during COVID.
Mm.
And I think we all have times because I feel like in life, when it rains, it pours. So we definitely all have these times where it's like, I can't take this anymore. Like, when does this end? I was definitely feeling like that. But then there was this other feeling that was like just overcoming all of that, which was this sheer feeling of hopelessness because I felt like I had been struggling for so long and I truly did not see any hope for the future, which is such a dangerous place to be. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication. And I was unconscious in my bathroom for a day and a half. I was in the hospital for a day and a half. I was released from the hospital and I called a friend and told her everything that happened. And her response was, "It's not your time." And it was so profound and set a
Wow.
cold chill through my body. And it really made me think. And I was like, I think she's right because I could have died and I didn't. So I think I do have a purpose. And I was like, I want to figure out what that is. And that was like the huge shift in my life where it actually was like, I decided to stop being the victim of my life circumstances and actually taking agency over my life and do something about it.
That is incredible, and I'm so glad you wrote a book, and I'm so glad that you're open about this because I think so many people reach that point, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
they don't. Yeah, I mean, you're lucky, and so just to be clear, because just for my fascination mind, like
Yeah.
you were like passed out like in your own bathroom, and then you just woke up like a day and a half later. Is that?
Yeah, well, it was wild because I was blacked out. I do kind of remember talking to my friend on the phone, but she had to basically tell me what happened because I didn't remember because I was blacked out. But basically, I was talking gibberish. So she was like, "I'm coming to get you." And so
Wow.
she picked me up and took me to the hospital. And even I was like, "How was I walking?" She was like,
Yeah.
"You weren't walking very well." Uh, But so, and then she took me to the hospital. And even in the hospital, I was kind of in and out of consciousness because I was in the emergency room for a while. But then I had to spend the night. So they transferred me to the psych ward, which was like this whole experience within itself.
Oh.
But I was still in and out of consciousness. But anyway, so they released me from the hospital. And this was COVID. So
Oh
they,
God.
my, yeah, I don't know if anyone went to the hospital during COVID, but they when I was in the psych ward and they're like, okay, you're released, they just handed me these clothes that were not mine because they were like, your real clothes are in plastic bags and you cannot open the plastic bags until you exit the building. So I had to wear these weird clothes that that were probably donated. And so and they just like dumped me on the sidewalk. So I'm standing on the sidewalk with like 2 plastic bags, like no ride home. And I'm still high as oh, sorry.
That's okay.
You have to bleep that out. So I'm just standing there like, oh my God. And then, so then I like open the bag and I get out my purse and I turn on my phone. And so I was out of pocket for 3 days. So it starts blowing up with text messages. And so I thought it was the next day. And I'm responding to a few text messages, and the friend who I called when I got home, she had a workshop the day I was totally missed out on, that I was unconscious in my bathroom and I didn't show up, obviously. So she had been texting me like, are you okay? Why didn't you show up? And she was like, you didn't come to the workshop yesterday. And I was like, the workshop's tonight. Like I thought it was the day before.
Yeah.
And then something else, there was another text that was kind of referencing the day before. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And then I looked at the day and the time. So that's when I realized how long I had been unconscious in my bathroom. I didn't even realize it until I got out of the hospital. I thought it was the next day and I had just slept overnight.
That's, unbelievable. Great story. Like in every meaning of the word great, like just, but it ends well. So that's why it's a great story. I'm curious because this I'm a sports fan and I watch like football, and NFL players at younger and younger ages keep committing because of different reasons. And it's mostly, they think, CTE related, but I have a feeling it's not fully that. It's also just when you achieve a goal and then life still feels hopeless, to use your word. I imagine that could be difficult. They always advertise like, call this number. And like, as a matter of fact, because we're discussing this, I'm going to have to put like a huge thing on this podcast. While I am appreciative that they have all that, like, would that really help? Like, do you think there's like a better something out? I just feel like if someone's at rock bottom, they're not going to like pick up a phone and... Hi everybody, this is Mike Oppenheim, the host of Coffin Talk, the show you're currently listening to, and I'm interrupting to ask you if you would mind doing me a favor and subscribing to my online publication called You Are Here on Substack. It features weekly essays. I also have fiction, and of course there are links to the podcast and all the bonus episodes. It's completely free, and I would love your support, so please head over to mikeyop.com, that's MIKEYOPP.com, and sign up today. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Okay. This is my opinion, and I'm not against you putting the number up or whatever.
No. Yeah.
This is my opinion because, and I didn't call the number, obviously, but I went to I was in the emergency room and I was in the psych ward. So this is my experience from the hospital. They treated me, keep in mind, I just took an entire bottle of, I don't know if you've heard of, it's called clonazepam. It's basically a nervous system suppressant. It's a benzo. I took 32 entire pills of that. I almost died. Again, I was unconscious in my bathroom. In the hospital, they were basically treating me like a caged animal because the mindset was, which on one hand I can appreciate, but their mindset and goal was we don't want her to harm herself again. So the whole energy toward me was like, don't do anything. Don't, like, you're dangerous. Like, it was just really gross because honestly, all I like really needed was compassion and even just a hug. And I had a period of PTSD, and I think a lot of that came from my hospital excursion. And so my point is, like, I think if you call the number, the energy is going to be like, don't do this. Don't feel how you're feeling. It's not okay to feel that way. But when you're feeling that way, you just need someone to hold space for how you're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. No, it really does. And with friends who I've actually had the good fortune to talk to help them, that is what I usually try to do, is I try to say, like, look, I validate that. And if that's really the
Yeah.
route you're going to take, I'm not going to stand in your way or like obstruct it so much as I just want you to know that like I won't judge you and, you know, and I love you and blah, blah, blah. But I do think we're entering a weird like era in our society where like it's just, I mean, that and school shootings, I would say like the two things are like
Yeah.
very related to me. It's just like, oh, let's keep telling people like band-aid like comments and like let's talk about like nothing that's getting to the bottom of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like gun control is not the solution to anger and violence with guns. Like to me, it's anger like that. Yeah,
No, agree. Because I used to live in Chicago and like there's just like this underlying current of anger. Like you can
yeah,
feel it.
yeah,
And so, yeah, and people were like, oh, we need more gun control, whatever. It's like, no, we need to cure anger. I'm totally on board with what you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Well, so I think that's a good segue into. Can you describe for our audience what is Inner Glow and how did you become a coach and what do you do?
So, inner glow is basically being so full of love and for yourself that you just feel this energetic glow inside of you. And not only that, it radiates out and other people can feel it and be inspired by it. Because in hindsight, I never would have described this about myself at the time. But in hindsight, I truly hated myself because obviously, and it wasn't even just the act of overdosing, but like I used to overexercise, undereat. Like there were just so many self destructive behaviors that I had. And in hindsight, it's like, wow, I really did not like myself. But then, you know, after getting out of the hospital, I took agency for my life. I invested in myself. I hired a coach, and it was really focused on behavior changes. And so, for example, I used to have zero boundaries. And so, learning how to set boundaries, I actually started to have respect for myself, and it started changing a lot of these beliefs. And when I truly started feeling, because I had that limiting belief that I didn't deserve to be loved, but eventually I truly started to believe, like, yeah, I do deserve to be loved. And it just felt like this warm glow in my chest. And again, like it would radiate outward and other people would be like, oh, you're glowing. And that's like literally what it is when you're so full of your own self-love.
That's incredible. That's really cool. That it resonates up to the point where I achieve what you're talking about because I still have issues with a lot of what you're speaking of, and it's not. This isn't like boohoo pity Mike time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's the opposite. It's like I'm on this path and I see the goal, and the goal is you and what you just described. Is there like a switch? The phrase I'm having difficulty with, and I'm always having difficulty, is like I deserve to be loved. I know that intellectually. I'm not like dumb. Also, my
Mm,
children love me. I feel their love
yeah.
every day. So I know, but there's like a harsh critical voice in my head that says like, yeah, you deserve to be loved, but you're still a failure. Yeah, you deserve to be loved, but
Mm.
you still sometimes overeat and like you should work on that, you know, like those kind of things. So I don't know, do you have any like live real-time advice for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I do because I used to have a super harsh critical voice and I thought that's who I was. But then I realized it was the voice of my mom. And I'm like,
Oh,
that's not who I am. And so there's like several things you could do for this. One, I really started tapping into my intuition and who I am. And that voice is so loving. And even if, like, so for example, like if because sometimes I'll just like tap in for advice or whatever. And if the answer is no, like your critical inner voice would say something like, no, you're an idiot. Why would you even think something like that? But your intuition would never be that mean to you. Because your intuition is you. Your intuition might say something like, no, it's not the right time. Just be patient. It's just like such a loving voice. So one thing is just tapping into like your, and whatever you want to call it. Because again, I know that's like woo woo when you talk about higher self or whatever, but it's just like who you really are as a person, and which is not critical at all. So your critical inner voice is probably a voice of, if I had to guess, assuming your parents were your primary caregivers growing up, it's probably one of your parents, but it could be like a teacher or someone else. But a good antidote for that also is self-compassion, because a lot of what you're describing too with the critical inner voice, that comes from perfectionism, which I used to think, because I was a perfectionist and I still have some tendencies, I used to think it's like, well, I just have high standards and it's just who I am. But being a perfectionist is having impossible standards and then beating yourself up if you're not living up to those standards. So for me, having self-compassion helped so much. So for example, like if you do make a mistake, instead of beating yourself up, it's like, okay, what can I learn from this so I can do differently next time?
You're incredible. You're a very good coach. That was all very good. And also it's interesting because I love my parents and they did a great job raising me, but they raised me. Like they didn't like
Exactly.
consciously or unconsciously do anything. And it's not even that one or both of their voices did that. It's that I also watched them operate with themselves too. So I can like see the pieces. And on top of that, there's just like I'm feeling it now with my two younger kids. I don't know what the future is going to look like, but I sure don't want my kids to face like the horrible, awful truths that I had to face. So I want to like
Yeah.
prep them a little bit for that. But with that comes nastiness and like not kind logic. Like, people are going to be stricter when you go to kindergarten next year. So you should blah, blah. Like I hear myself saying that and I'm like, why am I telling her they're going to be stricter? It's because like I know it was for me, but like for all I know,
Uh,
so there's, I do for people who are parents and also just for all of us who are children of parents, I never saw that coming. That like I'm trying to prepare for a future, but also like the future has artificial intelligence, social media, like nothing you and I grew up with.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine navigating parenthood with all the stuff that's available now.
I mean, I hope my kids appreciate the fact that I'm going to be the cruelest totalitarian when it comes to no cell phones and no Instagram, and I'm just not going to do it. I don't care. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't blame you.
yeah. That's the one thing I just, what's his name? The famous writer who just wrote that book that everyone's starting to talk about now. Oh man, he's so Jonathan Haidt. He wrote this like, big, basically he just published what everyone knows, which
Yeah.
is like, but it's like, it's really scary. I mean, because you and I are the same age. I mean, have you noticed that social media crept into your life at some point and that you were like starting to succumb to it? The
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, so yes, but then how I got the idea for my book was the period after my dad died, because we live in a just get over it society. So after a few months, people are like, well, why are you still sad? Like they just wanted me to get over it. So I just noticed a huge disconnect because I would go on social media and it was like all the highlight reels and my life is so perfect and happy. And I just remember thinking, I can't be the only one who feels this way. Like I can't be the only person who is going through something really like, and so that was like the start of the disconnect, but that doesn't mean like I still, even though I've done all this inner work on myself, I still get pulled into this like external validation and comparing myself to other people. And again, I have wisdom that comes with age. I've done intentional inner work on myself and I'm still getting pulled into it. So what about like the younger, naive kids who like just don't have that kind of tools and knowledge? I think it can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, it's scary. It's good though that you have the self-awareness factor. This has been an incredible interview. I've enjoyed every second of it. You're an incredibly gifted person, and I think that very few people I've ever met, and I've done 200 something interviews, and I've had a lot of friends, can talk about the struggle you went through and the incident in the bathroom. And I'm using vague words because YouTube
Yeah,
will just
I
tear
know.
this episode down. So I'm
Which
intentionally
is
being this
another
vague.
rant I could go
Yeah,
on.
no, it's me too. Like, remove yourself. Like all these, like, have you heard about like the words you're supposed to use? It's just,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's heavily censored. I'm like part of this group of survivors. See, I won't even say the word.
Yeah.
But it's hard for us to speak out because it is so heavily censored. But it's like so many other people go through those things and we need to be talking about it. So it's such a struggle.
Yeah, you can go on Facebook and see a video of a real person killing a real person. You will struggle to find this conversation. You'll
Yeah.
struggle. You can't find any footage of how they farm animals and what they do to put them in a can so you can eat them. Like, it's like our society's censorship is so out of whack, in my opinion.
No, agree. And also, what I find interesting about it is what I didn't work. So I don't see what's wrong with me talking about it because it's not going to give anyone ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I never take like benzos, but I had a really bad muscle pull and this doctor gave me, like a whole thing of muscle relaxers. So I took one benzo at like 2:00 in the afternoon.
So, yeah.
Oh, my daughter was like tugging on me, Dad, what's wrong? My wife is like staring at me like, did my husband like pick up a heroin habit? And like, I like was groggy. I mean, that was one pill. I mean, it was my first time ever, but still. Like, yeah.
No, well, when I was using it, how it was supposed to be used, I would take a half pill right before I went to bed.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's how strong they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I always give my guests the floor at the end of the interview. Just anything you want to share with the audience. There will be notes for how to find your book and your coaching enterprise. But anything you want to say?
Well, I mean, I think that's basically it. My website is runninginslippers.com. So if you are not feeling happy and fulfilled, I totally turned my life around to the point where I feel happy and fulfilled most of the time. And that doesn't mean I don't feel negative emotions. It just means I respond to them differently. But my point is, if you are not feeling happy and fulfilled, it is absolutely available to you and you are worthy of it. And I am living proof that it is possible to come out of that situation.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Angie Hawkins. She's an inner glow coach. She is the author of Running in Slippers, a raw and vulnerable memoir. And based on our conversation, I believe that it is raw and vulnerable. Yeah. And now you're a friend. So thank you, Angie, so much for coming on our show. And best of luck to you. And I hope that in the future you get even more surfing and bungee jumping experiences that are seriously the scariest thing in the world to this guy. But you've been a great guest. And to everyone watching or listening at home, once again, the best way to support our show is just to head over to mikeyop.com. That's MIKEYOPP.com and sign up for the free news service that I run, which is basically funny haha stories and things that are designed to make me feel bad about myself and make you feel better about yourself. So thank you, everyone at home. Once again, my name is Mike Oppenheim. You have been watching or listening to Coffin Talk, and we will see you soon.